That might be better if I turn my mic on. Oh, that's a great start. Thank you, Wesley. I appreciate you telling me that. I feel like an idiot, but that's all right. That's what live's all about, right? So, okay, let me do my whole spiel again, since I just wasted the first 2 minutes. So good. Good to have you here. I'm not sure who that is. When it comes through Facebook user, you'll see the little icon pop up there. It tells you it's Facebook. Facebook user is typically somebody commenting from the Woodturners Retreat Facebook page, and there's certain anonymity rights for posting on a page to a live stream. So yeah, if you are posting from the Woodturners Retreat, it'd be helpful if you post your name if you want to. No worries either way. So let me back up and get back to Doug. So thanks, Doug, for joining. Doug Grissom is down from the Houston area, South Texas area. I'm not quite exactly sure. So I met him a couple of years ago at SWAT, and so it's good to have you here, Doug. Old Faithful? Yeah. Thought it was my IPC, laugh out loud. No, it's this idiot with the not turning the mic pack on. So no worries. Okay. And Glenn, to have you back. Good to have you back, Glenn. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry, folks. Yeah. I'll get after a break over Christmas break from the last series. I guess I forgot a few things. Brain cells. Tony's back. Thanks, Tony. Hey, Todd. Thought my headphones were dead. I'm giving a lot of people grief, aren't I? It's kind of funny. So sorry about that, folks. So good to have you here. Let me back up and talk a little bit about what this series is about, what we did last time and stuff. So as you can see in the graphic behind me on this side, we're talking about face grain this series. It's going to be 8 weeks every Friday, 2:30. Since I'll get into the 2:30 thing in a minute here. Since the last series, I think was end of October, November, and beginning of December, 8 weeks there. We did small projects, and most of those small projects were spindle oriented. So I thought, well, we kind of missed the category on face grain turning. So we thought we'd talk about that a little bit and go through some projects there. So yeah. That's what we're going to do this next 8 weeks, and every Friday at 2:30 here, Central Time in the U.S. I'm in Central Time in Dallas Metroplex in a little town called Allen, and 3:30 Eastern Time, 12:30 Pacific Time, and I think it's 8:30 UK time. Brian, you can chime in. I think you're in the UK, right? Brian Flood's here. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. And so yeah, that's so why 2:30? So I told this story a couple of times last series and in the earlier series. When I was working where my wife and I met, Shelly and I met, we worked at this company that every Friday we worked 37 and a half hours a week. It was kind of nice. So every Friday we got off at 2:30. And so we'd always head off to the bar or the pub, as you say, over across the pond, and get a drink or something after work on Fridays. So people eventually looked to me to say, Todd, where are we going for a beer? And I got the moniker 2:30 Todd. So that was 30 years ago, maybe more. So I brought the moniker back and stuff. So. Yeah, so 2035 in UK. Yeah, so 6 hour difference, I believe, right? So that makes sense. Yeah, so face grain. So let me show you, what I'm talking about this series briefly here. So let me share. I'm going to share this screen of the Chrome tab with you. This one. And this is a page off my my web page. Let me make this bigger. I'll get my little head out of the way for a minute. So just so you know, this is the homepage, woodturningtoolstore.com. But if you come to explore woodturning, oops, I got to get on the actual page, not here. You can pull down and go into live streaming woodturning with Todd Rains. and that's where you'll find this information. We got the face grain series starting, and there's kind of the schedule. So today, just face grain orientation basics. I don't know. I don't know what you don't know, so we're going to start at the beginning and kind of work our way through. So, face grain orientation basics today. I don't know if I'll get any turning done today, but we'll talk through a few things and stuff like that. Next Friday, some basic tools, talk about bowl gouge, and then we'll get into some projects: simple bowl, thin bowl, twice turn bowl, square bowl, platter, and rim decorated bowl. So kind of an ambitious sort of schedule, but we'll see how it goes. So a lot of these bowls I'm going to make, I'll probably donate to Empty Bowls. Empty Bowls is a charity program here in the States, in many cities, that benefits the food banks. So in our area, North Texas Food Bank, I think other clubs in the area have their own food banks and stuff. So the organizations get together, they auction off these empty wooden bowls or ceramic bowls for ceramicists and raise money for the food bank. So that's where my club donates bowls, and that's what we're going to do. So hopefully we'll get a few bowls out of this for the Empty Bowls program. So take a look here on this page. You can also watch the live stream on my page as well. It's a YouTube stream on the Facebook page or on my website page. And then you'll find down below, and I don't know why my mouse is not working. Bear with me a second as I refresh here. Down below, you'll find the past live streams. So the small project series, all of those live streams are all on here. So you can go back and revisit any project that I have and go through those. So take a look at that page. And there's a great resource there. And of course, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. You'll get notified when this happens again. So let me come back. So I'm guessing Chris Parker's on. I see a hi, Chris, from the Woodturners Retreat page. Thank you. Joseph, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. And, there's Chris Parker. Yeah, I hope you're well, Brian. Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. And then I'll get here because it's just freezing. Yeah, so it is a little chilly in the shop today here. Not as bad as probably over there, but I did have to put on a long sleeve shirt. Let's see where to start with this. So this is really just talking about grain orientation, and I call it face grain. Some people call it cross grain. It's really a difference of where the wood and how the wood is oriented. So let me drop here, put this up. So here's the lathe. Let me, widen that out just a little bit. I'll bring the tailstock up just a little bit so you can kind of see. And I got my air hose stuck in the way. So that's the tailstock point. I've got a little rubber chucky device on there, but let's just say that this is the 2 points of the lathe. If we got a stick going across this way, the grain's running this way, that's spindle oriented or long grain or parallel to the lathe, or the grain runs parallel. When we're talking about face grain turning, then we're looking at grain that's running this way or this way or this way on the turning. So if I look at that one's not up far enough. We're looking at a piece of wood where the grain is going across this way. So I call that face grain. Do you guys call it face grain? Let me know. And one of the reasons I call it face grain is I did a lot of flat work prior to wood turning. So face grain, edge grain, and end grain are really what I know. So let me know what you guys prefer or use terms you use in your wood shop. So. Chris Cohen, thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. It's good to have you here. So Chris is our club newsletter guy, so that's good. And this says, "Hey Todd, what's up, man? Facebook user. I'm sure you know who I am. And I probably know who you are. I just don't know the name. So just pop your name in there, and I'll say hi for sure. again, this is a Facebook thing from the Woodturners Retreat page, and it could be from my page as well, that allows user to be anonymous. So unless you agree to let StreamYard use your name. So let's see. Tony says face grain for me. Yeah, okay, good. Old Faithful says face or end grain generally. Yeah. So there's a difference between end grain and face grain. We definitely need to make a distinction there. So end grain, is spindle oriented in a way. Typically, when I talk about end grain myself, I'm talking about entering the end grain that way. But end grain certainly puts the orientation across the spindle and the tailstock. So what I've got here on the lathe bed on this board, I just got a board sitting here to have some contrast, is a piece of wood. I think just to mention lumber. So I'm going to zoom in and we're going to take a look at it and just talk a little bit about it and say why we call it face grain. So you can see the grain patterns here. This is a stock, lumber from the lumber yard, so they painted the ends. So the grain is going this way. And I know this may be basic for a lot of people, but I need to start here because we got to start somewhere. So the grain is going that way. We can see it coming out. The rings are following here. So this is just the annular rings of the piece of wood that we're dealing with. So that means it was oriented this way in the tree or up and down in the tree. And the grain is coming up this way. So if we take a look at that, so the tree is growing this way. The center of the trunk is over here somewhere. And so this we call end grain, this we call face grain, and this we call edge grain or side grain. So from a flat work perspective, you'd want to prepare your boards for creating furniture by making your face grains parallel to each other and then 90 degrees to your edge grain. And then you'd cut off your dimension lumber across and cut the end grain to make your, whatever sticks of lumber you need for building furniture. So, and when you're building furniture, you often use a chisel. So if you have a chisel and a piece of board, you can kind of play along with me or do this afterwards. We'll take a look. I'm going to raise or lower this down a little bit to get a bit better view on what I'm doing here. So, it's me, Roper. Hey, good to have you here, Michael. That's good. I'm glad you're on and watching. So that's really nice. Roper's a great turner out of the Boulder, Colorado. Golden or Boulder? I can't quite remember. It's close. But anyway, I visited his shop. Got a year and a half ago now, I guess. So during the Rocky Mountain Woodturner Symposium. Nice guy. Working out of your cold shop these days. I'm sure it's chilly up there. So good to have you here, Michael. Watching from the new micro shop. Yeah. So there he is. Yeah. Excellent. Good. Yeah, I've been watching your Facebook posts, so you're kind of getting used to the new shop. So lots of people off Facebook that I'm trying to get in, understand who they are. Think you're in now, Roper. Yeah. So perfect. Okay, so we take a look at a chisel and a chunk of wood and how we would perhaps chamfer the corners of our piece of furniture, right? So we'll take a look at a nice clean edge. I'll do it on this side. So I've got a nice square corner here that we want to chisel off. So if I wanted to chamfer this edge in a flat grain piece of wood, I want to cut downhill. So I want, I'll just highlight this a little bit. So I've got a grain line running right there. This is nice and parallel. So if I want to cut that, I want to cut this way from this direction on that piece of wood. So I'm going to take my chisel and peel off that nice corner piece and just make some nice curly shavings like that. So, and let me go overhead. So you can see it's peeling off quite nicely with the chisel. And you get nice curls of grain coming off, and you get a nice finish on your piece. Why does that happen? Because we got supported grain, because we're not digging in and tearing up grain from the other way. If I did the other way, if I go uphill grain where I'm going off the edge, you see that? Look at that. Right away, I've picked up and chipped that piece of wood, right? So your chisel is what I call going uphill, and what a lot of people call going uphill, and it's just going to break out and keep breaking out and chipping out like that. So what does that mean for us wood turners? It means the same thing. We got to cut with the grain. So that's an important thing to remember if we're looking at this kind of grain orientation, cutting from a piece of fiber that's supported by the next piece of fiber here. So that's exactly what we want to do all the way down these strands of fibers on this board, is cut in this direction. So if we cut in this direction, we're going to be wrong. That's not what you want to do. Don't cut in that direction. That's not going to work. So I actually have a template over on the other side of the shop that looks like a bowl, but it's not a bowl. And it's great for illustration. So let me just grab that guy out, and we'll talk about bowl shapes and grain orientation. And let me just catch up on the chat a little bit first. Let's see. Good to have you here, Wes, from Edmonton. Yeah, I grew up in Calgary, so I know Edmonton fairly well. We got friends up there. Joaquin's on. Thanks for the text this morning, Joaquin. Yep, good to have you here. And some other people on Facebook. Chris Parker is Rotary Chisel, really happy with my new chisel from you guys. Oh, is that Jeff Wexstein on? Okay, good to have you here. Excellent. Okay, so let's talk about how this affects our bowl turning or face grain turning. So first of all, let me kind of put this up here and just kind of show a little bit of why. How to get this fixture fixed up. How a piece is going to get mounted on the spindle. So we're going to take a piece of board like this, or a square piece, or something we've cut round. So let's just say this is nice and round. We'll draw it on the side. We're going to have it up there like that, and we're going to want to cut from long grain from small diameter, large diameter. So we're cutting downhill with the grain. If I do it this way, it's going to make more sense. So we'd cut this way to get a good grain cut. So it's actually going to be easier to show with this guy here. And if I do overhead, it's going to be even better. Let me widen this out. And I don't have this turned on, so just move it manually. So if this is a bowl, and I've got this as a it's a cross grain bowl. So if this is mounted on the bowl on the lathe like this, and as a matter of fact, I'll show this one, and I may actually mount this just to kind of do a cut with it, but it'll be mounted like this. So we've got this bowl shape, right? So, but this piece kind of shows how the chisel would cut on, and obviously we wouldn't use this kind of chisel on bowl turning, but the blade edge exemplifies the example. So we want to cut from the grain in front of another supported piece of grain. So these lines represent the grain and the wood going this way, which is exactly what we have when we mount this piece on here. So cutting the chisel along this line, we're going to have a nice supported cut along the whole way. So that's kind of what we want to have to happen all the way up the outside of the bowl. So we typically cut from small diameter to large diameter on the outside of a bowl. On the inside, we want to cut the other way. We want to cut from large diameter to small diameter. So we'd go from here into here, because this fiber supports this one supports this one supports this one, etc. So that's the general principle of cutting on face grain. And so that's kind of where I'm where I'm coming from with this sort of orientation, beginner sort of step into face grain turning to get people cutting in the right direction on their piece of wood. So let me just look at a few things we can use to mount face grain stuff. We'll talk a bit more about this next week as well, and mount a piece and start turning. So we've got between centers. We'd use between centers. We'd have a center here and a center over on this side. Just barely in there. So, and I'll take this guy off because that really doesn't make a whole lot of heaping sense right now. I had this on for another project just earlier today or yesterday. So we'd squish a piece of wood. I don't have any square bowl blanks right now. Between centers, here and here, or between a screw chuck and there, or a screw chuck and just by itself. I'll show that, and we'll mount this up and just kind of take a quick look. So I've got this couple of ways to put screw chucks on. This guy I haven't used for quite a while, but he would go in here and screw on. I think that's actually going to be, yeah, it's too small for that guy, but we'll use that as a quick way to kind of just mount something up and take a look at it. I'm not going to turn anything today on it, so just want to hold it up there. So we can get our orientation or at least in our heads what we're talking about. So, and again, this is all something that you need to kind of learn a little bit about, is seeing this grain orientation as this. So that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of cutting from small diameter to large diameter on the outside of a bowl. That's the right one, yeah. So you can see this grain right here is just coming across this way, and all these grain lines kind of line up. So I think that's making sense, hopefully. Let's take a look and take a little break for a second. I got a couple of things to share, so I just got to make sure. Bear with me a second. Oh yeah, still working. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going to start. Learning about face grain. Next week, I'll certainly have a square blank, and we can talk about how that works and cuts and stuff. I do want to chat a little bit about a couple other things going on. It's a good time to do that. So let's see. So this will be, like I said, every Friday, 2:30, and let me get a little bit big because otherwise it looks a little silly. Me hiding behind that thing. So I hope you come back next week and the weeks after that. And Q&A is always welcome. So if you got questions, we'll try and answer them. If I can't answer them, hopefully the other crowd members can chime in. Either way, we'll try and get everybody answers. So by way of announcement, tomorrow I have a IRD planned. Tickets are available on my website. So Kitchen Utensils tomorrow at 12 U.S. time. So my website has the front banner on it for buying tickets for that. So it's a little this one's not quite finished. This is what I was practicing with the other day, and you can kind of see the idea behind the get my head out of the way, behind the utensil. So the spatula. So little slot fits in the rim of your dish, and so it can stay there and live there forever. So that's going to be a fun one tomorrow. Come check that out. Appreciate you seeing you there if you are going to come. So let's see. I think in a week tomorrow, Woodturners Retreat is having another session. So this is the Canadians showing up. Kate and Joanne turning on Saturday the 30th, 2021. Visit woodturnersretreat.com for tickets. Honestly, I'm not sure when it starts, so Chris may post that in the chat or something, so feel free to do that, Chris. That's fine. Let's see. That is it for announcements. Let's see. Go back. There's some comments. So let's see. I got a big message from Sherman Anderson. I'm new to this group. Oh, great to have you here, Sherman. You're on the YouTube channel. Began turning in '99 with a spring pole lathe. Okay, you're a hardcore. I've upgraded lathes eight times since, and sold lots of spinning tops. And I think the comment got cut off. No, that's it. 12,000 spinning tops and 110 species. Yeah, it's so that's a workout, spring pole lathe, and then upgrading so many times over the years. So good to have you here, Sherman. Thank you. Sure, you've got plenty of advice. Tony, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks for joining in tomorrow, and have a great night, you two. That's it. Good to have you here, Chris. Thank you very much. If you want to drop in the link to the Woodturners retreat, that would be fine too. Thanks for joining, you guys. So I'm just going to finish up here. It's going to be kind of a short one today, maybe 30-40 minutes. I'm happy to hang out and chat and stuff, but I kind of just wanted to get into why the orientation of face grain versus spindle grain. Oh, I got a couple other things maybe to show. So there's different ways to mount things on the lathe. Screw chuck is one of them. This kind of device with the proper sized hole, or a screw chuck, a woodworm screw that fits with your chuck. This is a Vic Mark, so I've got the Vic Mark screw attachment. My head's in the way. I'm going to get that out of the way. So this is a little woodworm screw that mounts inside the chuck, right there. And I believe this or something similar is what I used for these guys here, this bowl. So that's another way to first mount between a blank is drill a hole, mount on a screw chuck, or a purpose-made chuck screw drive that fits in your chuck. And then, or between centers, like I was showing the LEO drives, you can use that headstock and pin your blank between centers. Either way, that would work too. We've got the old standby, the faceplate. So a faceplate would mount on your ball blank. Let me get the chuck off here. So if you had a block of wood, you could take a faceplate and mount it up in center, somewhat center of the bowl. Use screws to tie that down. Type of screws is important. Don't use drywall screws. Everybody's got to have drywall screws sitting around for fixing things in the house. Those are too soft and brittle. Get yourself some sort of hex head machine screws, number 12s, number 14s. And then screw into the wood that way. Make sure you got about an inch worth of contact into the wood. So, and then use as many as you feel comfortable with. I think the bigger the blank, the more screws, that kind of thing. So that's a good way to do it. You'll notice that the faceplate is actually countersunk on the back side. That is for when you do screw in a screw or drill a hole, we'll get fibers kind of sticking up, and that's just really relief for any backed up fibers. So otherwise I use hex head flat washer machine screws. I don't have any kicking about out here. So faceplates, drive centers, worm screws, all good ways to start turning on the lathe. Once you get something rounded, then you stick a tenon on the end. On this one, I've got a dried piece of mesquite here. It's got a nice tenon on the side. The other way is to do a mortise. So there's a nice walnut platter that's started. It's got a nice wide mortise in it for holding and turning the backside. And then I think this other big one is mortised as well. So this is dried, turned a while ago and dried. It's really warped. This is ovaled, so it's wider here than it is here. So I will have a challenge turning that one. So I didn't leave my nub on, which I usually do, but I didn't here in this case. This was actually turned quite a while ago. And you can see on this one where I've left the tenon, I do have my center mark still, and I don't have on that one. So this one was purpose built for a demo. So there's some other examples. So here's a good example of trying to figure out the grain orientation. Let me zoom in on these. This is kind of a neat little example. So we got a piece of sycamore, we got a piece of curly maple. Can we tell which one is end grain, which one is face grain, and which way the grain is going on each one? So this one is a little bit tricky to kind of look at. I get confused every once in a while too. If you don't have any sort of orientation of to where the pith may be, the center of the tree may be in your piece of wood. So this piece of wood was cut, from a large tree off to one side. So you don't get any really orientation of which way the grain is going, other than these lines going straight across. So could it be face grain wood, or could it be end grain? So let's see. What did Chris say here? Oh, hang on. Let me back to. Sorry, Chris. 1 second. I get to that. So Chris put up the Woodturners Retreat website. Check out that for tickets to Joanne and Cade's demo next Saturday. Chris, I put a dot on the inside of the mortise tenon to help me find center again. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. If it's still mounted, put a little pencil mark dot. I usually try and leave my my tenon mark on there. I think for this one, for example, I leave that on there as long as I can. If it's twice turned, I try and leave that on there. For some reason, I didn't on that one, so learn my lesson there. Glenn, what is the wood diameter limit for different size faceplates? Yeah, well, I think it's the larger the tool, the larger the turning. So, with I think this is about a 4-inch face, 4.5-inch faceplate, 5-inch faceplate. It's got several screw holes in it. Looks like about 10 or 12. So I would say I could probably mount this to a 14-inch bowl. Would want maybe a larger steel one. This is aluminum for anything larger. So yeah, smaller faceplates you get with the, I don't even know where when you buy a lathe, you usually get a faceplate with it. I don't even know where mine is right now. It's somewhere around. So those are usually small ones, usually 2 to 3-inch faceplates that you get with your lathe. You could do something up to maybe a 10-inch bowl. So I guess I'm kind of looking at, 2 to 3 times the size of the faceplate for the turning. And it really depends. Another factor to add in there, let me get my face on there so I can talk to you. Another factor is whether it's wet or dry wood. In other words, the weight. If you got really wet wood and it's really heavy, use a larger faceplate to start with. You may need to want to switch to a smaller one afterwards if you get it hollowed out. Other than that, use your best judgment, but use the right screws. Heavy duty number 12, wood screws or machine screws, not drywall screws. Important. And if you're faceplating into end grain, there are some other tricks to do there if need be. So let me get back to this, and this will lead right into what we're talking about. So this obviously is a piece of quilted maple with the grain running this way. Even though the figure lines run this way, the grain is running this direction. So maybe it's a little even difficult to see back there, but you can see the grain lines running through here, through there, through there. but the ripple pattern kind of goes cross grain. So that's a little tricky to kind of look at and see. This one is a piece of end grain. So this is an end grain piece of sycamore. All the grain is running this way, and so these lines are the lines of the where's my stick of wood? Are all these lines going up the side of the inside the bowl? So that is somewhat tricky. I picked it up on. Oh no, that is an end grain piece. So end grain pieces are again where the grain lines up in line with the axis of the lathe. So there's different cutting techniques for end grain, just opposite of face grain. So we can talk more about that next time as well. One other piece to kind of, or a couple other pieces to kind of confound and confuse, and one to clarify. So this piece, a burl, is trying to figure out which way to cut on this one. Well, it really doesn't matter on burls because the grain is going everywhere. So, Chaim's in the house. Good to have you, Chaim. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. So, yeah, this is a pretty piece of burl. I got to turn at some point, but if I mounted this up, there's really no directions in terms of cutting this way, cutting this way, or this way. It wouldn't matter too much because the grain is going all over the place in here. So that's where sometimes you kind of get a little different take on the rules of turning grain. When you got a piece like this, it's kind of obvious where the tree is and how this is oriented in the tree. So here's the pith. In fact, it's still in the piece of wood, and here's the outside of the tree. So if I mount this way, it's a cross grain piece of wood. If it was spindle oriented, it would be mounted this way, right? So with the pith and the grain running parallel, that's spindle orientation, or what do we call it? End grain, I guess, as well, as that's the end grain there. But cross grain would be this way, and this is typically how you turn this bowl. So I would mount this between centers. In fact, that's how I've started it. And then turn a tenon, turn it around, turn a tenon, a bit of shape, and then turn it around and finish it off. So yeah, depending on how your wood looks, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard to figure out what the heck it is. So anyway, that's pretty much. I almost forgot about those other pieces of wood sitting behind me to talk about, but that's kind of what I wanted to go through today. And again, want you to join me for this series. Hopefully, next week we'll get a piece of wood on the lathe and talk about cross grain cutting. So let's see. I think that's it. So I just want to hope. I want to say I hope everybody had a great holiday season, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, and all that stuff. So hope everybody stays safe and healthy and happy. We're hunkered down here, trying to get my fingers are cold. So yeah, until next week, 2:30 Todd saying good night, good day, and we'll see you next week. So thanks for joining in. I appreciate everybody chiming in, and we'll take care, and you take care, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. That's it. Bye for now.